The sky was orange. The air was dry and full of dust. The ground was cracked, like a broken plate. It was not Earth. This place was cold, not in temperature, but in feeling. Empty. Lonely. A small woman walked slowly over the dry ground. Her name was Ilya. She was human. Her feet were bleeding. Her clothes were torn. Behind her, 2 small children followed. A boy and a girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Their faces were thin. Their eyes were full of fear. "Mom," the girl whispered. "My stomach hurts." Ilya stopped. Her hands shook. Her lips were dry. She had not eaten in 2 days. Her children had eaten even less. She looked round in the distance. There were strange buildings, tall metal. Alien smoke rose from chimneys. There were lights. Movement, maybe. Food. Ilya took a deep breath and picked up her daughter. She held her close and started walking toward the alien village. Her son followed behind, silent dot as they got closer. The aliens noticed them. They were tall and purple, with long arms and sharp yellow eyes. Their skin looked like stone. Their faces showed no emotion. A group of aliens came forward. They were soldiers, holding strange weapons. One of them spoke in a low voice. "You are not from here," he said. I came in a ship," Ilya said. Her voice was soft, tired. "We crashed. We have nothing. My children are starving." The alien looked at the kids, then back at Ilya. "And what do you want?" he asked. Ilya swallowed hard. She looked at her children. "I'll do anything," she said. "Work your fields, clean your machines, warm your bed, anything. Just feed my children." The aliens laughed. One of them stepped forward. His armor was heavier, his eyes colder. "You are a human," he said. "I've seen your kind before. You beg, you cry, then you die." Ilya said nothing. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were still strong. "I am not begging for me," she said. "Just feed them, please." The leader stared at her for a moment. Then he nodded. "Fine," he said. "You will work in the labor farms. If you obey, they will be fed. If you don't, they starve." Ilya nodded slowly. She hugged her children tightly. "It's okay," she whispered to them. "Mommy will fix everything." The soldiers took her children away. They cried, but Ilya didn't fight. She couldn't. She just watched, tears in her eyes. They gave her dirty clothes and chains. They took her to the fields, giant open lands, with strange purple plants. Other workers were there too. Some humans, some other alien races. All looked tired, dirty, weak. Ilya was put to work. She had to dig the hard ground with her hands. No tools, no rest. If she slowed down, they hit her. If she stopped, they shocked her with electric rods. But she said nothing. She did not scream. She kept digging. At night, they threw her into a small metal cage. Cold and dark, she sat alone. Her back hurt. Her fingers were bleeding. In the corner, another human was sitting. "You're new," the man said. Ilya looked at him. "Yes." "They took your kids." "Yes." He nodded slowly. "Then you'll live." Ilya narrowed her eyes. "What do you mean?" "Only those who have something to live for survive." She looked down. Her hands were shaking. But something inside her was burning. A small fire, weak, but alive. The next morning, she worked again. Harder, faster. The guards laughed. "Look at the little human," one shouted. So desperate. But Ilya wasn't listening. She was watching. She was learning. Where the guards stood. How many there were. When they changed shifts. Where the food came from. They thought she was just a mother. They were wrong. They called her the quiet flame. The first time Joran, a thin alien slave with silver skin and one eye, saw her, she was digging in the dirt. Her fingers were bleeding. Her hair was a mess. But her eyes were different. Not afraid, not broken, just burning. "She's new," Joran whispered to himself, watching from the shadows of the fence. "But she's not like the others." He had seen many humans come and go. Most cried, most begged, most gave up after a few days. But this woman, Ilya, was still standing, still working, still watching. Ilya's world had shrunk to dirt, pain, and silence. The alien farm was massive, dry purple fields under a hot blue sun. The guards wore red armor and carried shock sticks. They barked orders in a loud voice. No one spoke back. If they did, they were punished. Every morning, Ilya woke up in a cold metal cage. She couldn't see her children. But each time a guard walked by, she asked just one thing. Did they eat today? Sometimes, the guards lied. Sometimes, they said nothing. One time, they laughed. That night, Ilya didn't sleep. She worked harder than everyone, digging, carrying, lifting heavy seed bags. Her body hurt, but she didn't care. She was counting everything. How many guards were there? Where were the weapons kept? Which gates opened and when? Who else looked strong enough to fight? Joran watched her carefully. "Why don't you break?" he asked one night when the guards weren't listening. Ilya looked at him. "Because if I break, my children starve." He nodded slowly. "You were not always a farmer." "No," she said. "I was a soldier." Later that week, something changed. A human boy tried to steal a piece of food. The guards caught him and threw him into the mud. They raised their shock sticks. Everyone else turned away, but Ilya stepped forward. "Stop." Her voice was calm, but firm. The guards stared. One of them hit her in the stomach. She fell to her knees. She stood back up. "Stop," she said again. Another hit. She fell again. She stood again. The guard raised his stick once, more than paused. Something in her eyes made him hesitate. He didn't understand why. She was just a weak human woman. But for one small second, he was afraid. He turned and walked away. The boy crawled to Ilya, eyes wide. "Why did you help me?" Ilya didn't answer. She just wiped the blood from her mouth and walked back to her cage. That night, something moved through the slave camp. Hope. A small spark. Silent, but real. Other slaves, humans, and even non-humans, started whispering about her. The quiet flame. The mother who defies them. Some still stayed silent, fearful, but a few started watching the guards too. The next day, Joran approached Ilya during work. "I know where they keep the access cards," he whispered. Ilya didn't look at him. She kept digging. "Why? Tell me." "Because Joran said, you're going to do something. I can feel it. And I want to help." Ilya said nothing. But for the first time, she smiled. Just a little. Later that week, while working near the food storage room, Ilya slipped something into her sleeve. A small metal chip. No one noticed. She was building a plan for escape, a plan for war. But someone was watching her. A young alien god named Var. Quiet, smarter than the others. He had started noticing the little things, the way she moved, the way others listened to her. He didn't report her yet. He wanted to know more. That night, Ilya sat in her cage, holding a small piece of cloth torn from her daughter's old jacket. She whispered to the stars, "I'm coming. Just hold on." The camera zooms out, hundreds of cages, endless fields, and one woman sitting alone, but unbroken. The chain may be tight, but the fire is growing. Log entry 873A, Overseer, Var, subject for 2H, species, human female. Name Ilya. Status, obedient, but observant. Physically weak, emotionally unstable. Noted behavior, refuses to speak, unless necessary. Protects others. Prediction, likely to collapse within to work. Cycles, end of log. Overseer. Var stood above the fields, arms crossed, eyes cold. The alien wind blew dust across the purple plants. Below, hundreds of workers bent their backs, digging, sweating, breaking. Var watched one human, the one called Ilya. She didn't break. She bled. She shook, but she never stopped. That was unusual. Ilya dug in silence. The dirt was sharp, dry, alien. It scratched her skin, got into her nails, her mouth, her eyes. But she didn't blink. Her fingers were red. Her back screamed. The heat was heavy. Her stomach growled like a wild animal. But in her mind, there was only one thing. Are my children still alive today? Every swing of her hands, every cut on her palm, every breath through cracked lips. It was all for them. Around her, the other workers moved like ghosts. Some were human. Some were from other species. Most had empty eyes, dead inside. But now something was changing. They were watching her. They didn't know her name, but they saw her stand when others fell. Saw her take beatings without fear. Saw her help the weak without asking anything back. They whispered a name in secret. The one who burns. That evening, in the feeding line, Ilya was given a half-rotten fruit. She didn't eat it. She looked at the guard. My daughter. Did she eat? The guard smirked. Maybe. Maybe not. Eat your food. Ilya placed the fruit down. If she didn't eat, I won't either. The guard raised his hand. Another guard stopped him. Not her. Let the fire die on its own. They walked away. Ilya stood alone. In the cages that night, a small alien boy, barely 10, sat beside her. Why don't you fight back? He asked. You're strong. I see it. Ilya looked at him. Her voice was soft. Because I can't fight alone. The boy tilted his head. What if you didn't have to? Ilya raised an eyebrow. What's your name? Rook. My parents died on the first day here. I watch everything now. Like you do. She smiled gently. Then we'll both keep watching. Over the next days, something grew. It wasn't loud. It wasn't fast. It was silent resistance. A human girl slipped a stolen tool under a crate. A tall, horned alien started hiding extra food for others. Rook passed messages from cage to cage, and Ilya kept digging, kept bleeding, kept counting. Every guard, every weak point in the fence, every storage keycode dot at night. She pressed her hands against the metal wall of her cage. Just one chance, she whispered. Give me one. I'll burn this place to the ground. Overseer Var noticed it. Not the rebellion, not the food missing or the tools vanishing. He noticed the looks. The way slaves began standing straighter, whispering more, hoping again. All because of her. New log entry. Subject 42H is affecting morale. Further study needed before termination. One morning, a week-old man fell during work. The guards aimed their shock rods. Ilya stepped between them. No. The guards froze. One laughed. You think you can stop us? She didn't answer. She just stood there. A silent wall. The shock rod hit her shoulder. She fell. She stood up. Another strike. Her lip bled. Still, she rose again. The guard raised the rod a third time, but a clawed alien worker stepped forward. Then another, and another. One by one, the slaves formed a wall behind her. They said nothing, but their silence shouted one message. Enough. The guard stepped back. Not in fear, but in confusion. Overseer Var saw it all. New log entry. The fire is spreading. That night Ilya knelt in her cage, holding a small metal chip in her palm. Stolen. Important. The first piece of her plan. She looked up at the alien sky and whispered, "Wait for me, my babies. Your mother is still alive." 7 years earlier, Earth before the fall, the sky was filled with fire. Smoke covered the city. Tall buildings collapsed like sand. People screamed and ran, but nowhere was safe. In the center of it all stood Captain Ilya Ward, Human Combat Specialist, 3rd Division, Earth Defense Command. Her armor was scratched. Her rifle was hot in her hands. Alien ships swarmed overhead, raining destruction. She wasn't running. She was fighting. Fall back. She shouted through her cum. Cover the civilians. A team of soldiers followed her voice. Brave, trained, loyal. Ilya was a leader, a fighter, a storm in human skin. Now alien labor farm. Cage Unit 6B. Ilya woke with a start. Sweat rolled down her face. Her hands gripped the edge of the cage floor. No weapon, no armor. Just skin, dirt, and chains. She had dreamed of her past again. Of the woman she used to be. Of the warrior she buried when she became a mother. But that woman wasn't gone. She was rising again. Outside the cage, the sky was dark blue. Morning bells rang. Another day in the chains. But today, something strange happened. A new worker arrived. Not through the usual gate, but escorted quietly by 3 guards. Heads bowed. Not a prisoner. Not quite free either. He walked tall, calm, controlled. But his face was hidden under a dusty hood. Ilya saw him from a distance while loading seed bags. Her heart skipped. The way he moved, the shape of his jaw. Could it be? His name was Kale. Once her second in command. Once her closest friend. Once in love with her. He had disappeared during Earth's final war. She thought he was dead now. Here he was. Alive. Hiding. Watching. He didn't speak to her yet. He just slipped into the labor schedule like he belonged. But at night, under the caged stars, he appeared beside her cell. Ilya. She turned slowly, eyes wide. She hadn't heard that name in weeks. Here, they just called her 42H. Kale. He knelt beside the cage bars. "You're really here," she whispered. "I've been here 2 months," he said. "Undercover. I thought I'd lost you." She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "My children. I know," he said. "I've seen them. They're alive. In the upper compound. They're watched, but safe for now." Ilya's breath shook. Her knees gave out. "But if you wait too long," Kale added, "they won't stay safe." That night, the 2 soldiers sat in silence like old ghosts. He showed her a hand-drawn map. Guard shifts. Escape routes. Storage codes. Everything she needed. Everything she had been building quietly was suddenly coming together. "You've started something," Kale said. "The workers follow you. They whisper your name. They believe." They don't need to believe in me, Ilya replied. They just need to believe they can fight. Kale smiled. That's what makes you dangerous. The next morning, a guard named Va checked her cell logs. Movement increased. Communication higher. Eye contact between species rising. He didn't like it. He sent a report to command. Slaves may be uniting. Root cause, human, female. Subject, 42H recommend isolation or execution. The message was never answered. Because something worse was happening. That afternoon, the food vault exploded. A small, perfect detonation. Not enough to kill, just enough to spread fire and confusion. Guards ran, lights failed, chaos erupted. It wasn't an escape attempt, it was a test. A warning. The slaves weren't afraid anymore. And at the center of it, walking calmly through the smoke, was Ilya. She stood on a loading crate as flames lit the dark sky behind her. From different species gathered dot. No one told them to come. They just knew. She raised her voice. We are more than tools. We are more than numbers. They took our names, our families, our lives, but they never took our will. Her voice cracked, but it burned. Not yet, not ever. Some wept. Some stood taller. One guard aimed a weapon. Kale dropped him before he could fire. The rebellion had begun. Not with guns, but with belief. They were not allowed to bury the dead. That was the law of the farm. If a worker died, their body was thrown into the fire pits. No names, no words, no honor dot. But on the 17th cycle of the season, someone broke that rule. A young alien named Rook, the boy who once sat beside Ilya, was killed by a guard. Shot in the back while trying to pass water to an old man. He didn't fight. He didn't run. He just tried to help dot, and they killed him. That night, Ilya stood under the strange stars. Cold wind blew across the field. In her hands, she held Rook's scarf. Around her, workers gathered quietly. Dozens of them. All species. No one spoke. They had no words, so she gave them some. He was only a boy, she said, voice steady, and they shot him like a dog. She looked up at the metal towers in the distance, glowing in the dark. They think we are weak. They think we are nothing. But listen to me. She looked at every face, broken, scarred, tired, and yet still alive. Rook is not gone. He is fire now. He is memory. He is the spark. She took a deep breath. And now, we burn. The rebellion began with silence. The next morning, no one moved. Hundreds of workers stood still in the fields. Shovels untouched. Machines off. No digging, no lifting. The guards screamed. Threatened, shocked, still. Silence. Then a guard raised his rod and struck a woman in the face. Ilya stepped forward. Took the next hit without blinking. Kale struck the guard from behind. Took his weapon. Threw it into the field. A second guard raised his gun and was knocked down by a stone. Then another. Then a tool dot. Then fists. Then everything changed. Chaos exploded. The field turned into a battlefield. Aliens, humans, all species united for the first time in chains fought back with bare hands. Tools, fire. Ilya didn't command them. She led them not with orders, with rage, with love, with purpose. Overseer, Var watched from the control tower. He stared at the screen. Guards were losing control. Drones crashed. Storage units burned. He called for backup. None came. Command had grown lazy. They never expected this. He zoomed in on Ilya, covered in dirt, blood on her face, holding a broken pipe like a sword, and smiling. She wasn't just rebelling. She was daring them to try and stop her. Log entry. This is no longer labor resistance. This is war. By sunset, the outer fences had been breached. Half the guards were gone, captured or fled. Ilya stood on the edge of the field, staring at the main compound walls. She knew her children were behind them. Kale came beside her. We can't hold this ground for long, he said. Need long, she said. I just need a door. That night, Ilya entered the central control room for the first time. A holographic map glowed on the wall. Red lights flashed everywhere. She looked at the workers who now stood like soldiers. Tired, dirty, armed with whatever they could find. She pointed at the map. There, she said. That's where they keep the children. Kale looked at her. This won't be easy. Ilya nodded. I don't care. The sound came from the speakers. Overseer Var's voice. You think this is a victory? He said, calm and cold. You've only awakened the real enemy. Ilya stepped closer to the speaker. Good, she said. Let them wake up. Let them come. We'll remind them what humans are made of. The screen flashed. A warning. Off-world reinforcements incoming. A larger force was coming. Heavier weapons, stronger enemies. But Ilya didn't flinch. Because now, she had an army. And something stronger than weapons. A reason to fight. They sent machines first. Not soldiers. Not voices. Just metal. Cold. Silent. Ruthless. Flying drones. Hunting scanners. Mechanical dogs with sharp legs and red eyes. No mercy. No rest. They flew over the broken farm looking for the spark that had turned into fire. Looking for Ilya. But Ilya was no longer in the fields. She was deep underground in tunnels, dug years ago by slaves who had died before the rebellion ever began. Some called it the wormhole. Ilya called it home base. Inside, dozens of species now gathered, dirty, scarred, scared, but not broken. And for the first time, they had something they never had before, a plan. Ilya stood in front of them, arms wrapped in bandages, a crude blade on her hip, Kale beside her, Rook's scarf still tied around her arm like a flag. On the wall behind her, someone had scratched into the metal, "We are still alive." She pointed to a hand-drawn map with circles around the other camps. Not just 1, 5, 10, maybe more. All across this planet, others live like we did, she said, chained, starving, waiting to die. She touched her chest. We are not waiting anymore. Meanwhile, in another camp 200 miles east, a young woman dragged a water barrel under the alien sun, her skin cracked, her eyes hollow. Suddenly an explosion, in the distance. The sky darkened with smoke. A whisper passed through the workers. Ilya is coming. They had never seen her, never heard her voice, but the story had arrived before she did. The humans in that camp didn't run. They stood up straighter. Back, in the tunnels, Kale sharpened a rusted blade. She's a myth to them now. He told Ilya, "You're not just a soldier anymore. You're a symbol." Ilya smiled slightly. "I didn't come here to be a symbol. I came to find my kids." Kale looked at her gently. "And now you're saving everyone else's." The rebellion grew. Sabotage teams took down watchtowers. Food storage units were raided at night. More slaves escaped and joined Ilya. Every time a drone was destroyed, someone painted a red handprint on a wall. That red hand became their mark. The mark of the rising. But then came betrayal. His name was Mex, a quiet alien worker with one arm and a sharp mind. He had earned their trust. Helped Ilya find tunnel exits. Shared food. Faked loyalty. But Mex was not with them. He had made a deal with the overseers. "Bring us Ilya alive. Your freedom. In exchange." He planted a tracker on a stolen radio Ilya used for communication. The next night, the tunnels shook. A blast door ripped open. They came. Black armored soldiers. Elite shock troops from the upper command. Heavily armed. No emotion. They entered like a black wave. Kale grabbed a rifle. "We're blown." Ilya yelled. "Split the groups. Save the children first." She didn't run. She fought. Fought like the captain she used to be. Like the mother she still was. Like the leader she never asked to become. But it wasn't enough. They captured her bloodied. Cuffed, dragged. Meks stood near the soldiers. Expression unreadable. "I trusted you," Ilya said. Barely breathing. Mex didn't reply. The soldiers threw her into a steel pod. Kale tried to reach her. Was hit and thrown back. The doors sealed. The ship lifted. Ilya was gone. The fire should have died. The rebellion should have ended. But it didn't. Single quotes teed in the tunnels. Someone stood where Ilya had fallen. A young alien girl. She picked up Rook's scarf from the dirt, tied it around her neck, turned to the others. "She showed us how to fight." The girl said, "We don't stop now." One by one, they stepped forward, weapons ready. Hearts broken, but unafraid. Ilya was captured. But the fire was free. And from that dirt something unstoppable had risen. Somewhere above the planet Imperial Council Chamber, orbital ring station. They sat in silence. 10 of them. High above the surface, in a floating fortress made of black steel and white marble. The Empire's richest minds. Cruelest voices. Most powerful rulers. They watched her on a screen. The human woman in chains. Ilya. Blood on her face. Hands cuffed. Knees on cold metal. Still, she looked straight into the camera. Unblinking. Defiant. "She has united 10 camps," said one. "Over 3,000 slaves. 800 guards dead," said another. 5 transport stations destroyed. "She is a worker. A mother. A soldier. She is nothing. She is everything we feared humans would become." A tall, thin alien with glassy skin leaned forward. "Burn her," he said. The others nodded. "We will stream it to all sectors," one whispered. "A message. A warning. A funeral for hope." In the execution ship, holding Cell 9, Ilya sat on the floor, shackled at the wrists and ankles. Her lips were cracked, her ribs ached, her breath shallow. She could feel the engines humming. They were flying her up into the sky, into space, toward death. But she was not afraid. She was listening. Her fingers tapped the rhythm of an old military code onto the wall. Just once, tap, 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 tap. A signal. If anyone was out there, they'd know she was still alive. Back on the planet, the resistance had become war. The red hand symbol was carved into every camp wall. Slaves were no longer waiting. They were building bombs, smuggling weapons, hijacking cargo ships. The myth of Ilya had become more powerful than Ilya herself. But in the middle of that fire, one person was missing. Their mother, their flame dot in the stars above. The execution began. A silver room, a glass wall, a camera facing her. They strapped Ilya to a black chair. Lights glowed red. One alien general stepped forward. "This is what happens when you challenge the sky." Ilya looked up and smiled. "Too late," she said. The general frowned. "What?" She nodded to the window behind him. Boom. Fire. In the sky. A rebel ship dropped from orbit, cloaked until the last second. Engines roaring, guns blazing. Kale was flying it. They blew a hole in the station wall. The alarm screamed. Explosions rocked the execution floor. Ilya yanked her wrists. The cuffs snapped. Not luck, training. She slammed her elbow into the guard's throat, grabbed his blade, and ran. The rebel ship hovered outside the broken wall. Kale shouted over the coms, "Jump." Ilya didn't wait. She sprinted and leaped wind. Stars. Gunfire. She hit the ship hard, rolled, and was pulled in by rebel hands. She was back as they flew away. Fire swallowed the sky behind them. Ilya stood at the window, bleeding, breathing, smiling. "They wanted to show the galaxy a funeral," she said. Kale looked at her. "They did, but it wasn't mine," she whispered. 1 week later, hidden resistance base. The room went silent as Ilya entered. Her face bruised, her arms stitched, but her eyes sharp, focused, alive. "They tried to kill me," she told them. "They failed." She stepped onto a small platform, not because she wanted power, but because they needed direction. Their time is ending. They rule from towers, from orbit, from fear. But we come from the dirt, from the chains, from the ashes. And now, we rise from the sky. She raised her hand, fingers clenched into a fist. The crowd roared. Ilya. Ilya. Rebellion had a leader again. And this time, she wasn't just surviving. She was coming for the Empire. My mother had strong hands. The voice was soft. A little girl, remembering she used to braid my hair every night. Even when she was tired. Even when her hands were cracked and bleeding. She said, "As long as I can hold your hair, you're still safe." I didn't understand what that meant back then, but I do now. 3 days before the final battle, outer orbit resistance base, Ilya sat alone in a quiet room. Not in armor, not in chains, just a mother again, holding a tiny scarf in her lap. Rook's scarf. Her daughter Lena sat across from her, now clean, fed, but still quiet. Her eyes older than her years. "Are you coming back this time?" Lena asked. Ilya looked at her. The fire in her eyes had not dimmed, but it had softened. "I don't know," she said honestly. Lena didn't cry. She just nodded. "Then fight like you always do." Ilya smiled. "I will." Now planet Varex Prime, the heart of the Empire. The sky was black. Ships floated like metal sharks above the planet. On the ground, 1,000,000 boots marched. Alien forces, machines, weapons carved from fear and steel. The Empire had gathered everything, because they finally understood this wasn't a rebellion anymore. This was humanity's return. From the clouds, rebel ships descended like thunder. From the fields, armies of freed workers rose. Not just humans now, aliens who had once been slaves. Aliens who had once served in silence, now roaring. Each one painted with a red hand on their chest. Ilya led from the front, not behind glass, not through screens. She stood on the battlefield, scarred, armored, alive. She carried no flag. She was the flag. The fighting began. Flames, lasers, smoke. But Ilya didn't stop to watch the war. She was heading for the tower, the Emperor's command center, the heart of the system, where the chains had always started. Kale and a small strike team moved with her. cutting through defense lines. One by one, guards fell. Inside the tower, the Emperor waited. A creature of pure pride, tall, silver eyes glowing blue. "You are just flesh," he hissed as she entered. "You are just rage." Ilya stepped forward. "No," she said. "I am memory. I am love. I am war, and I am human." They fought not just weapons. Wildot, he was strong, faster, ancient, but Ilya was relentless. And finally, she drove a steel rod through his heart. The Emperor fell. Outside the tower, the sky turned red with fire, but the people didn't run. They stood, watched, and waited, until Ilya stepped out, blood on her armor, smoke at her back, and raised one hand open. Not in power, in peace, silence. Then, the roar of millions, slaves, soldiers, children, from every corner of the planet. "We are human. We are free. We are alive." 1 year later, Earth's new colony, Lena, sits beside her younger brother, writing in a book. "My mother had strong hands," she writes. "They weren't just hands of a fighter, or a worker, or a rebel. They were hands that held the broken, and helped them rise. She didn't save the galaxy. She reminded it who we are." Fade out. Final shot. The red hand, once a mark of chains, now painted on a white flag, blowing in the wind of a free world.